Kirby. Kirby is a rather iconic video game character made by Nintendo and HAL Laboratories in 1992. Fun fact, did you know that HAL Laboratories named themselves accordingly because, quote, each letter puts them one step ahead of IBM. I can't tell if that's extremely clever or extremely petty, and either way, I love it. Regardless, the lovable pink ball got its start as a placeholder in early development for Kirby's Dream Land, the first entry to the series made for the Game Boy. It's crazy to think that such an internationally recognizable character got its start as something the developers looked at and went, we'll fix that later. And while Kirby's Dream Land introduced us to Kirby for the very first time, it wasn't until an entire 11 months later that the greatest entry in the entire series came out, Kirby's Adventure. Okay, yeah, so I haven't really played many Kirby games. Maybe I'm not the one who should be judging. Although Air Ride is a close second in my book. It's also the only other one I've played. Alright, so maybe I'm not the world's biggest Kirby superfan in terms of the number of games that I've played featuring Kirby. However, two of my favorite games growing up as a child featured Kirby, and I spent countless hours playing as him. Her? It? If you follow this channel, you probably already know a handful of games that I played growing up as a child, and you may guess where I'm going with this. There were two games featuring Kirby that I played a lot. One of them being Super Smash Bros. 64. And the other being Kirby's Adventure. For this being a game that came out before I was born, and it's on the NES no less, it holds up surprisingly well. I recall it being strangely addicting in my child eyes, and I picked it back up recently to make this video, and it's still fun. The controls are simple. Keep in mind when it was made you could only move in 4 directions and press 2 buttons. That's it. And yet, for there being a lack of physical input, you had a lot of control over Kirby. For example, you could walk in any direction by pressing left or right, or you could do a quick dash by double tapping in that direction. This is something we take for granted nowadays, but keep in mind when this game came out, the most revolutionary game on the market was Super Mario Bros. And the only way to move a different speed in that game was bound to one of the 2 buttons. Oh look, you're Fire Mario? Cool, let's throw a fireball. But wait, you gotta press the run button? I mean, sure, you can press it quickly and then let go, and then you're not really running. It's not that big of a deal, but you also kind of do get that short bit of burst of speed while you actually are running, and you have to actually press the, it's like, what I'm trying to say is Kirby's Adventure was made in a time when the developers were very limited with what they had to work with, and yet they still made interesting, unique mechanics with that. You can jump by pressing a button to get a quick vertical boost, or you can press up on the D-pad to slowly inflate your body like a balloon, gaining height over time. Because you know, the air around you has helium in it?
That's news to me.
Or is it not the substance that Kirby breathes in that gives him the ability to float, but rather him flapping his arms around that enables him to fly? If so, why not just avoid breathing gas in the first place? Skip a step and just flub your little nubs around. This game doesn't make any sense. You can crouch, you can do a tiny little dash kick, and of course, the most exciting mechanic is using your powers of suck to inhale enemies and items that you come across in the world. At which point you can either spit them out to use as a deadly projectile, or swallow them whole to copy their abilities. See, that's something I can get behind. This game makes a lot of sense. In addition, the worlds are memorable, and also they're named after catchy, food-based alliterations. What's not to love? Each world usually has a handful of fun levels, finished by an exciting boss fight. Not to mention that as you progress, you unlock fun mini-games that you can use to get things such as bonus points or extra lives. And of course, accompanying all of these awesome features is a wonderful soundtrack. Keep in mind, we're working on the NES here, so while we don't have epic, long orchestral pieces, we do have short, simple chiptune tracks. The songs in this game are just so cheerful and bouncy, you can't help but tap along as you're playing. Since I love this game, and since I appreciate all the hard work everyone put into this when they were making it, I figured I would remix it, give it my own modern day approach, sort of re-envisioning it in my eyes to reflect how music is made nowadays. As always, this isn't an attempt to tarnish the legacy of this game, but rather just me, some guy, remixing a game I played as a kid. I was looking up remixes for Kirby games, and more specifically Kirby's Adventure, and ultimately I found a song that I feel like hasn't gotten the love and attention it deserves in the Kirby series. I kept posting teasers on my Instagram implying that I would make some sort of Kirby song remix related content on this channel, and everyone kept thinking I'd be remixing Gourmet Race, or using some other guy's remix of gourmet rays. It's like, guys, come on. No, I wanted to play around with something that hasn't been done well enough already, or at least not as much. What I ended up landing on was a song called Vegetable Valley, the background music for the first world in Kirby's Adventure. Aside from booting up the game and listening to the main menu sequence, this is the first song you come across in this game. So what better track to remix than the opening song to a wonderful soundtrack to a wonderful game from my childhood. Remixing Vegetable Valley involved getting a hold of the MIDI files from the original song. This was relatively easy to do, but the notes were obviously played live, so the next step was to quantize them. While I know some people claim this is a downside of this genre of music, and I respect that, I wanted to give the song an electronic feel to it, as if it were made using a DAW on a computer. Once I had precise MIDI notes, I divided up the provided file into 3 sections: melody, chords, and bass. I took the liberty of rearranging the pattern in which the chords hit in order to give it an even more upbeat rhythm, and went to work on sound design, which included finding the right lead sounds for the melody, as well as saws for the chords. I wanted to give this a progressive house feel, since that's the genre I'm most comfortable with at the moment, so my percussion mostly consisted of powerful kick drums for the low ends and cymbals for the tops. In addition, my drop also had the bass line I extracted earlier, as well as some sound effects for variety and to glue my track together. Once my drop was done, the next logical step was to turn it into an entire song, which I did by making a melodic intro, some in-between bridge sections, and the always important build-up. At this point, I say as if this only took me a few seconds to make, when in reality it took hours, my track was finished. So without further ado, my remix of Kirby. Have it, my remix of Vegetable Valley from a very old Kirby game. If you liked this remix, you can listen to it by itself without scrubbing through this entire video again, here on my YouTube channel, on SoundCloud, and on most major music platforms such as iTunes and Spotify. You can find the links to those in the description below if you're interested, and while you're at it, consider checking out other videos that I've made that are just like this. You can click the video in the top right corner to watch me remix The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, or click the video in the bottom right to watch me remix Super Mario 64. You can also click the box on the left side to check out some of my merch featuring my rendition of the Kirby Superstar as a little homage to this video. As always, thanks for watching, guys.